So I put the link to these slides in everyone because I wanted you to do the to prepare part before we started today. So hopefully everyone's done that. Okay, so we've also done this. We have an app. And here's the other piece that you probably haven't done yet. So let's do this together. So create a Git repo for your cafe app. Okay? Hey, Carl. All right, so Carl, do you have an app from yesterday? Did you do the work yesterday and have an app?
I got it working, but I didn't get the part.
But you have something that runs? If you run Rails S, you can see it in localhost and it runs? Okay, cool.
I already have I have my code.
Okay, so you're going to go into your directory where you've got your cafe app. I'll go into mine. Oh, wait. Alright, so actually what did I do here? Wait, oh yeah, I don't have one here yet either. Okay, so if you're in your directory, in your cafe directory for your app, how do we start? What do we do first to make this a Git repo? Yep, get in it. That creates a repository in the local directory. Oh, it does. Right, nice. Okay. I wonder if this blue one might get ignored. Surely it didn't, right? Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, so what do we do next?
Git add and git commit.
So git add, git commit, git commit, initial commit. Now we have to go to GitHub, don't we? We go to GitHub, we go to the plus sign, new repository. Call it whatever you want. I'm calling mine Cafe Rails. You can make yours private if you want to. I'm just going to keep mine public. I'm not going to initialize it. I'm just going to say create repository.
Oh, so we don't initialize
Nope.
it with the repository that we
Nope,
know?
never.
Okay, right.
I never do that. Then we're going to copy the string,
Okay.
and we go back to our local repo, and we say what?
Git add remote.
Git remote add, origin, and paste the string. And what does that do?
Makes that makes it the master.
Yeah, it just creates the remote connection, and we call that origin because it's the one to our the repository where we're storing this code.
I didn't
Or
get
like
back
main.
what you... Oh yeah, just put a return, and then you did...
And then I get remote -v to see that it created that connection. And then what do I do to push my code up there?
Well, you just push it now?
Mm-hmm.
Just get pushed.
And I'm always explicit, so I always say git push origin master, but you could just say git push. Okay.
Why do you have to put your password?
Because I'm using the HTTPS connection, which makes me put in my password. So,
I don't have to put mine in.
yeah, probably maybe because your OS is storing it somewhere or something. So then you can look at code in your repo and see that everything's there,
So,
and
so
we're all
say,
happy here.
New branch master to master.
You don't have to do that.
No, but it doesn't. That's what it says.
Oh yeah,
It's,
yeah, new branch, master to master. Yeah, down here at the bottom. That's right. Okay, so everybody got that? Now, you don't have to do this in order to deploy to Heroku. It doesn't require that you've got a repo set up in GitHub or somewhere else. But if you are working on development of an application, you don't want your only remote repo to be Heroku. Okay? You want to have a repo somewhere that's not Heroku. And later today, we'll talk about the kind of workflow that we should follow when we're developing something. And that workflow is going to involve creating your Git repo right away, adding and committing often, pushing to your master often, and deploying early to Heroku. As soon as you have something that runs, deploy it. As soon as you have something that runs, deploy it, and then start integrating deployment into your Git workflow. Okay? And then you don't have to panic at the last minute because you can't get it to deploy. All right? You'll just get that done early, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to deploy it right now. Okay, hang on one sec. Okay, did you join? I can share. Alright, hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay, Chris, can you hear me? I just unmuted my mic, so let's see if Chris can hear me. Okay, cool. Alright, so I'll share here. So Chris, we just created a repo for our project in GitHub, and we pushed it up there. So we created a repo, we did an add commit, and we pushed to our own GitHub repo for the app that we built yesterday. And now we're going to deploy it to Heroku. Okay. All right, so the first step to deployment is to create an app in Heroku. And basically what this does is it creates a remote repo on the Heroku server. And your app will be deployed out of that repo. Okay? And to do that, we just say Heroku create. You have to be Heroku logged in. So if you installed the Heroku CLI, and you can say Heroku login, and that login persists for a long time by default. So like I never do Heroku login. I'm like always logged in. And so if you get an error though when you try to do Heroku create about authentication, it means you need to do Heroku login. Now you can give your app a name, or you cannot. And Heroku will make up an entertaining name for you, and it'll be weird. And you can change that name later if you want to. So everybody do that now in your app directory where you just created your repo. Do a Heroku create. And I'm not going to give mine a name this time. And I probably have too many Heroku apps, so let's see if it has a problem.
You have to be in the cafe.
In the cafe directory.
And you go Heroku create.
Yeah.
And then what are you going to call
You
this?
can give it a name if you want. I'm going to let it generate a name for me. So you'll see, if you don't give it a name,
Creating app.
it'll create it, and it called it Nameless Mesa 96484.
Right, well,
Rocky Tour.
I'm going to give mine. Great. And do you have to put the name in?
No, it doesn't have to be in quote. Well, maybe it does. I can't remember now. No, it doesn't? Okay. No. Now, after you run that, if you do a git remote -v, you'll see that we've created another remote connection.
What did, do you have to go Heroku create? Can you go, can you just,
I just did Heroku create.
okay, and then when I gave it a name,
Yeah.
it went Heroku not found?
Then it's still not finding your CLI.
But I went, I've got to go which Heroku?
Yeah, if it doesn't show that there's Heroku there, then it's not installed still.
Yeah, there's user local bin Heroku.
Okay, so try running it again. Maybe you mistyped Heroku.
Yeah.
Does everybody else see a connection to Heroku now? What's up, Aiden? So it's on the preparation slide. it says to install the Heroku CLI, which I mentioned this morning. It is in the slides. So I had posted a link to the slides, and I mentioned it earlier on the to prepare slide in this deck. It says to install the Heroku CLI.
I have to change Wi-Fi. I hate this.
So now we'll be able to push to this remote connection just like we pushed to Origin to get our code out there. Okay? It's just like any remote repository connection, except that when we push to it, Heroku will try to redeploy our app with what we push. Okay? And we have to do something before it's all going to work, though.
Hang on, this is what I can't do. Because I had to change networks.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So what are you waiting for now?
I'm just... Okay. Valid credentials provided, is that?
You might have to do Heroku login if you haven't done that yet.
Login.
Yeah.
I've done the login. Oh, cue to quit. I've got a login.
Okay, so do Heroku create. Give it a name.
I did. Oh, I don't know. So I have to do it again.
Did it work the first time? If it worked, you don't have to do it again. If you do get remote-v and you see a Heroku connection, then you're good.
It says invalid credentials.
Then you need to do Heroku login. Just do it.
Where is it?
Just Heroku login.
That's just what I can. I started typing stuff and then it just took me out. See, I'm looking here.
Well, maybe that's invalid now though if you switch networks. So it doesn't.
Because I haven't done that yet.
Well, I log out and log back in this network. It's 6.
Yeah. I hope so. Just from last thing. 'Cause I called the section.
I hate this network. It's so slow.
Probably you did it initialize when you set up your repo, maybe.
It's not slow.
Yeah, so you
You
should
just
not
have
do
to
initialize.
type in the
That's the
password.
problem. Okay. So never do initialize when you do it because it'll create that issue.
Yes. Okay, yeah, sure. Keep concentration.
Now,
Recreate it, don't initialize it with everything.
Instead of typing,
It makes you appreciate when it's like on
now do you have to give it your email address or just the office?
No, you don't do anything, you just type it. And it should open the browser.
It's usually on average.
That will take it.
Like it's
No, it might be because of a proxy. Proxy thing.
yeah.
See the online triangle?
Right, which is proxy to network again. And proxy after switch. Now try to log again.
It's kind of complicated.
Well, you get pushed out.
emergency.
Steven is, but then sometimes that's too full. 12 times.
Are they ever like only one time ago?
Yeah, try closing your browser with Chrome instance completely, and then run Heroku again. Yeah, cool.
I was just read it somewhere.
So you have to run Heroku create.
My partner mentions the last two.
Are you saying that they're always picking up the full swim? No, you don't need to do this. It's not
It
right.
was too early.
See there and try that.
And it's surprisingly the crowd was feeling it. But it's very calming also the crowd starts getting angry at him.
Because like if you're early.
It was pretty fucking to watch.
Hayden, did you get it installed?
Yeah, one thing I haven't really heard.
Let's try to get another site.
Working for like Connect. None. That's create a project.
What do you need to do, Aiden?
It's just
Did you say you already had to get logged into the site on your browser?
No.
What?
Heroku login. Logs in from the command line.
you press any key on your.
Yeah, it's just not happening for her, yeah. That's like taking a while too. Try logging out of your Mac session, logging back in. See if it comes up with your usage first. No, I just think the Windows is loading. Hey Sam. Alright, so try just logging out, on your usage session on your Mac. Sam, did you happen to install Heroku CLI yet? Okay, Vic, we'll get you caught up, all right? I need to go or we're not going to get through everything we need to get through today. I will help you to get caught up. Okay, so one thing we have to do for Rails is we have to set the master key. Do you remember when we talked yesterday about the master key and how we don't check it into Git? So if we look at our app, this isn't the right one. Hold on.
Now my Heroku's trying to log in and on some code things. Come back up, you know?
Okay. So in the config directory, in our Rails app, we have a credentials, which looks like this when we look at it in here. There is a way to look at it. Don't worry about it right now. And it gets decrypted with this master key. And I talked about how we don't check our master key into our repo. We don't push it up there. But Heroku is going to need it in order to run our app. Okay? So the way that we make it available is through an environment variable to Heroku. Hey guys, So the Heroku has some config variables that we can set, and there are a couple of ways to do that. One way to do it is from the command line. So that's what we're going to do.
Can I do this stuff as well?
You'll have to probably create your app first. You can try to do it, but I think you'll at least have to be logged in, Vic, for this to work.
Hang on. We'll just let it set.
So we can do a Heroku config from the directory that we're in, from the cafe directory. You can do a Heroku config : set. So what that does is it tells Heroku that we're trying to set an environment variable in the config for the app in the directory that we're in. And we're setting Rails master key, which is the name of the config variable, the environment variable, and we're going to set it to whatever your master key is. So you have to go look in your master key file, copy that string. Don't put it in quotes or anything, just paste it. So you can take this off of here if you want. And then I'm going to go here, I'm going to copy this master key, and I'm going to paste it on my command line. And you can see that it goes and it executes a command on Heroku. Okay, so we're executing that remotely to set that config variable. Is it logging in now, Vic? Yeah?
It's trying to.
Okay. Okay, so the other thing that we're going to have to do you remember what we had to do to get the app to work on our machine? We have to set up the database, don't we? So on our local environment, we have an instance of Postgres, right? We have our own Postgres server, and we ran DB setup, and we ran DB migrate.
So do I go to the other network?
You can try. So we go to DB migrate. We did DB migrate after we created the models, right? After we generated the models, and that created the tables for us. So when we did DB setup, that created the databases, and then we did DB migrate, and that created the tables for us. But all of that only exists on our laptop. It doesn't exist in Heroku.
Logging in.
Oh, good. So we have to create those the tables in Heroku. So that's what we're going to do now.
So I log in.
And then do Heroku create.
And then
Heroku create. So Heroku runs its own SQL Server
so
instance.
should it look like this?
Yep.
And then in the terminal I go
Heroku create.
Heroku create.
Marcia, do you want to sit next to me? Okay, so Heroku has its own Postgres instance running on a dyno, and we have limited access to it. So on our own machine, we have access, we know the Postgres login and password, don't we? But in Heroku, we can't administer the Postgres instance itself. Okay? So it means we can't run things like DB setup, we can't run DB create, because we don't have the Postgres password, and we don't have access to that user. But we can run all the commands that we need to in order to set up the database. So in the way that we run commands, Rails commands, against our Heroku instance, is to preface those Rails commands with Heroku run. So when we say Heroku run, we're actually running the command on Heroku and not on our machine. Okay? So we're going to use Heroku run, and then we put the command we want to run. So in our case, it's Rails. We're going to run Heroku run Rails db : schema : load, and that will initially create our tables from the schema file that we've pushed up. So our schema file that we pushed up has everything in it, doesn't it? Because we've run migrate in our local, and it's generated stuff in that schema file. If we go have a look at our schema file in the DB directory, why don't I have it? Oh, never mind. We don't have a model yet. I'm sorry. I'm ahead of myself. We don't actually have a model yet, so there's nothing for us to worry about yet. So we'll have to run db migrate later when we add models, which is fine. Okay. So we're still going to run these things, and it's just not going to really create anything. If we had some models, which we will after tomorrow, and we will have to run these commands tomorrow after we generate those models and we update our schema, we'll have to run Rails db migrate on Heroku, and then after we populate our seed file, we'll run Rails db seed, and we'll just run that on the Heroku server. Okay. But for now, let's run these commands. Yes? Okay, then you don't have it installed properly yet. So if you do which Heroku, does it show you that it's installed?
I'll have a folder that says Rails.
No, it doesn't do it in VS Code.
What?
It doesn't do it in VS Code. Should I restart my VS Code window?
Just use your other terminal. Don't use your VS Code terminal. Okay, so let me try, because originally I was going to do this after we did models, so let's see what happens. Heroku run Rails. Did you say run?
Yeah, I read it.
No, you're right. Okay, let's have a look at, let's just see what, let's have a look at if anything was deployed. So if we go to Heroku, actually you can just say Heroku open from the command line. Let's see what happens. Okay. So, oh, we haven't done a push yet. Yeah, we haven't. So silly. All right, so that's why Rails isn't found. I forgot that we hadn't pushed it yet. Okay, so we have to do a push to Heroku. Right now, Heroku doesn't have anything in it. We've created the app, but we haven't pushed anything to it. Okay, so to do that, we just have to do, what do we have to do? Does anybody know?
Git push Heroku master.
Yeah. Git push Heroku master. So this takes a minute. Yeah, so we're going to do git push Heroku master. So it does take a minute. Is anybody's done yet?
Mine's still loading.
Look at that. And then it gives you the link where it's deployed. Or you can just run Heroku open from the command line.
Didn't work for me. I'll try it.
What didn't work?
The Heroku open. It just says error opening web browser.
Look at that. So because we don't have a database yet, we don't have to worry about the database commands. If we did have a database, we wouldn't have access, it wouldn't exist on Heroku until we run Heroku run Rails.
So when we do the database, we'll run through that.
We will. Yeah, that's right. And then anytime you modify Your database. So it's real common when you're developing a Rails app, and we'll see this happening next week. Really common that you start with a model a certain way, and then you realize I actually need another column, or I need to add an association, or I want to change the data type of this column, or maybe you want to change the name of a column or something like that. It's pretty common that you don't actually get it all sorted perfectly before you start. Like, you do your best to design it well and to have your initial design, match what the end's going to look like. And you don't have to be a developer for very long to realize that what you initially design never works out exactly the way you think it will. And you have to make changes, okay? So anytime we make changes, we add models, we modify models in our Rails app, we're going to have to run locally Rails DB Migrate, and on Heroku run Rails DB Migrate every time we want to update our database, okay? So it'll just be something that'll be in our flow, something that we do as we develop the application. So did this, so what's happening over here?
I have no idea.
Okay, so when you did the push Heroku master, it looks like it did okay. And if you run your app locally, so just do a Rails S. So if it's not working in Heroku, the first thing I do is make sure it's working locally. There's not a problem with running the Rails server. So open a browser window to localhost 3000.
No, I'm not logged in. I'm logged in from your command line. Yeah. So can you just try to change that? It'll log in.
Okay.
But then when you run...
Alright, so it does run locally. Did you run, did you set your master key?
So now what do I do?
Yeah? Okay, so let's go to Heroku. Does anybody else have a problem getting it deployed?
So how that helps?
Yes, I do. And then
If you go to Heroku in your browser, you can have a look.
It's in the distance.
Yeah, if you just go to like Heroku.com.
Oh, so basically I was doing something. So call it
I
something.
think it's .com. It should tell you where it is.
Yeah,
And then you can go to your, which one was it? Roaring Woodland? Sorry. And then you can click on deploy.
Janella, it doesn't matter which network I'm in, it doesn't live, it does it.
Okay.
Okay, hang on, I'm logged in. You're logged in. So right, so try to remove the where do I have this one? Oh, go connect proxy. Not changed to change. Yeah, change to CLI.
Use index words.
And now do that create everything. It's just yeah. Not trying to do it. It won't do it. It doesn't do it on both.
So from the command line we can do.
So Janelle, it won't let me do it on either network.
Okay, we'll have to have a look back. From kill this and run Heroku. Yeah, Heroku logs. So if there's a problem with deployment, you can run Heroku logs, which is really verbose, and it can be hard to understand, but you can look to see if there's an error in,
It might be because you
so you can
changed
see
networks.
here,
When you
you
change
did
networks,
a get.
I don't know. Probably I was in the other network and I created a program. Yeah, my online stuff doesn't work. So what I did was I logged out of it, changed networks, and logged back into this.
Status 404. See that status 404? That means page not found. So I think actually what the problem is, Lilani, is that you need to at least have a root.
I did that.
a root route set.
Okay.
So I think if you follow, because there's no root route, when you run it locally, where does it pull the welcome page from? It pulls the welcome page from your Rails installation, which is not on Heroku.
Okay.
So it's trying to find something, it doesn't have anything to display, there's no root route to find. So if all you have is the welcome screen so far for your Rails app, it's not going to work when you deploy it. Because when you do that on your local machine, it pulls the welcome HTML from your local Rails installation. So you have to at least have a root route defined.
Okay.
Okay? So once you get it to that point and you do a push again, it should be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. What happened with you, Mark? We'll get you sorted.
It's
not logging in.
It
doesn't
Yeah, from Angular to
Yeah, we'll have to sort it out. We will a bit.
They wonder because it says error open in browser, I have to open it manually.
Yeah, it could have something to do with using WSL. I don't know. So just open it manually. That's all right. Yeah. So just
Yeah, so this is what I got here.
yeah. Cool. All right. All right. Everybody else okay over here? Yeah. The link to. Okay, let me just see if there's any more slides here, and then we'll take a break so I can help people who are stuck. Okay, so we'll take a break here.